Discovered the amazing secret of an abandoned ranch that transformed lives in just 30 days. Emma's heart raced as she clutched the eviction notice in her trembling hands, her mind swirling with panic. At 32, a single mother of two, she had just lost her meager job at the diner that barely covered rent. The weight of survival pressed heavily on her shoulders, threatening to crush her spirit. Her chest tightened at the thought of her children, Ella and Noah, who depended on her as their sole provider. Failure wasn't an option. Yet, with the walls closing in, Emma felt hopeless, like she was standing on the edge of a precipice, staring into an abyss. As she stood in the dim light of her cramped apartment, the walls seemed to echo the struggles that had come to define her life. Every day, every pay stub, echoed fears of inadequacy and self-doubt. She choked back tears, fighting against the mounting despair that clouded her mind. How could she let her children down? Deep in her heart, a small ember of rebellion flickered. Clutching the idea of the old ranch left to her by her late grandfather, a man she barely knew, Emma wrestled with indecision. Could it be a lifeline or another ghost of her failures? Desperation clawed at her insides, urging her to take the plunge. With her last bit of determination, Emma resolved to take the children to the abandoned ranch. The journey out of town felt surreal. Dust danced in the sunlight as they pulled up to the worn-down buildings, the rusted gates creaking like they held secrets in their silence. As she walked through the overgrown yard, every step tightened her throat, fear mingling with curiosity. What awaited them behind those crumbling walls? Inside the house, a sense of melancholy enveloped her. Dusty boxes lined the corners, filled with heirlooms of a forgotten time. But it was the journals, filled with her grandfather's penmanship, that pulled her in. Each entry revealed dreams of restoring the ranch, breathing life into a community that echoed with struggle, just like hers. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With a flickering spark of inspiration igniting her spirit, Emma reached out to Mr. Thompson, her old mentor, hoping he could help steer her dreams into reality. Their meeting at the coffee shop was drenched in tension. Emma's voice quivered as she spoke of her vision, while his skeptical gaze pierced through her resolve. Self-doubt gnawed at her. Would he see her as nothing more than a failure? Yet buried within her anguish was an undeniable desire to prove herself. Days passed as Emma pushed through the daily grind of labor, uncovering family truths while feeling the weight of judgment from townsfolk. Every sideways glance wreaked havoc on her spirit, the whispers reinforcing her fears of inadequacy. But deep inside, her grandfather's voice resonated louder. She was stronger than the bitterness. Just when she glimpsed progress, a shadow loomed larger. Mr. Barrow, the ambitious developer, set his sights on the ranch. His proposal to wipe their history away for profit began to spread, leaving Emma feeling frantic and exposed. She stood amidst conflicting emotions, ready to gut her way through or flee into despair like she had so many times before. The ground beneath her was shifting, and with each passing day she realized she would have to confront the fears that threatened to engulf her once and for all. Either stand and fight for her children's future, or watch as they became relics of a history she couldn't protect. The ranch, once a burden, morphed into an unyielding symbol of hope, leading her toward the ultimate showdown. Emma's breath quickened as she grasped the enormity of her situation. Standing in what could only be described as a derelict monument to her family's past, she felt a new surge of determination. Her grandfather's dreams whispered to her through the dust-laden air, propelling her forward. Each morning she awoke with a fresh resolve, the visions of reclaiming the ranch crystallizing more starkly with every passing day. Determined not to fall prey to despair, she began to actively restore the property. Emma scavenged through the forgotten relics, pushing open heavy doors that whined in protest, and clearing paths covered with thick, creeping vines. With each splintered original floorboard she uncovered, emotions surged, a blend of nostalgia and purpose. As the weeks progressed, Emma's focus turned toward tangible milestones. She needed resources, tools, materials, and skilled workers. Networking within the community felt daunting, yet Emma felt an unexpected calling to reach out. She returned to the diner, now the only place familiar in a world tumbling away from her grasp. Drawing on her connections, she enlisted help. Old friends, sympathetic neighbors, even previous co-workers. They could lend a hand, a tool, or advice. Every handshake brought an outpouring of embarrassment and encouragement. At first, she bore their looks of pity, the whispers of doubt, but she chose to interpret their actions as seeds of support. One day, an elderly woman named Martha approached her with a shimmering smile and offered not just tools, but a coffee shop chipper spirit that infused the gathering with promise. Her enthusiasm lit a fire beneath Emma's ambitions and bolstered her confidence. Driven to keep that momentum, Emma dove into her grandfather's journals. Each page unearthed forgotten knowledge about farming, irrigation, and techniques from years past. As she absorbed the dense writings, she began learning that the ranch wasn't just land. It was an opportunity ripe for sustainable practices. She envisioned growing organic produce, fostering a connection with the land, while simultaneously providing for her children. But soon Emma faced a moral dilemma. With Mr. Barrow's development plans looming ominously like a thunderstorm over the horizon, she wrestled with the thought, should she remain an advocate for the ranch, risking everything, or should she accept an offer from him, one that could provide instant financial relief but effectively snuff out her dreams? The weight of that decision spiraled through her, intertwining with the fear, grief, and pride she had felt since arriving at the ranch. During sleepless nights, questions gnawed at her patience. Was she willing to let go of a future built on hope and sweat for the reprieve of the present? She began penning her thoughts, drafting a list of values. What did she truly care about? Could she hybridize practicality and aspiration into a singular vision? Each day morphed into a patchwork quilt of activities, clearing away debris in the barn, replanting wildflowers, and honing her outreach skills with the townsfolk. Emma found herself enveloped in whispers of her family's legacy as she became the architect of its revival. It no longer felt daunting, rather it was empowering. But just as she grasped the echo of hope, the tension thickened. One evening, standing at the rusted fence bordering the ranch, Emma watched her children, Ella and Noah, playing in the sunlight. Their laughter momentarily distracted her from the shadows of judgment tightening around her. If she faltered now, could she forgive herself for not igniting the flame of rejuvenation within them? The moment of confrontation with Mr. Barrow loomed closer. His proposal rattled her with a chill she could not shake. Standing firmly at the threshold of her dreams and the demands of reality, Emma prepared herself for what lay ahead, the stakes growing higher. Would she dare to defend all that she had fought to reclaim, or would she silently submit, becoming another casualty of life's harsh realities? With her heart pounding like a war drum, Emma steeled herself for the showdown. The battle for the ranch was already beginning long before she faced Barrow. It was one of conviction, strength, and the will to fight for more than just her own future. It was for her children's legacy. Before her stood a horizon filled with uncertainty, and one thing became undeniably clear. The time had come for Emma to confront not only Mr. Barrow, but the fear that had shadowed her life for far too long. Emma felt a mixture of dread and determination as she prepared for her meeting with Mr. Barrow. The sunlight had begun to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows against the weathered barn. Each step toward that confrontation felt like placing one foot in front of the other along a shaky tightrope. She clutched her grandfather's journals tightly, their pages worn but bursting with wisdom, the legacy she aimed to resurrect. The thought of allowing all her hard work to be dismissed in exchange for a quick financial escape gnawed at her resolve. The diner buzzed with familiar yet distant chatter as she made her way inside, her heart racing with each passing second. Emma set her sights on a corner booth where Mr. Barrow's imposing silhouette waited. He appeared confident, a concession to years of dealing with landowners in various stages of desperation. Yet as she approached, she detected a flicker of something else in his eyes, contempt wrapped tightly in curiosity. Did he see her as an obstacle or a minor inconvenience? "Emma," he greeted, his voice smooth like polished stone. "I appreciate you meeting me here." She slid into the booth across from him, forcing a smile. "Just trying to understand the options," she replied, the tremor in her voice nearly betraying her. Mr. Barrow leaned in, his features softening unsettlingly. "You have to consider pragmatism, Emma. The story of the ranch is a lovely one, but it's not sustainable in the market. I can offer you a very generous sum, more than you would make in years with the current state of the place." His words dripped with calculated charm, designed to lull her into reassessing her dreams. For a heartbeat, she felt the temptation tugging at her children's needs, the looming bills, the uncertainty of her own abilities. But then she thought of her grandfather's steadfast belief in resilience, the dirt-stained hands that had tilled the earth long before her own. Could she bear to uproot that legacy? "Generous," she echoed quietly, testing the weight of the word in her mouth. "But at what cost?" He chuckled, a hollow sound reverberating between them. "Cost isn't just a price tag. It's also time and emotional energy. This ranch has sat dormant too long." With each pulse of the conversation, Emma felt her conviction burgeon, simmering beneath layers of doubt. "You don't get to decide what my dreams are," she said suddenly, her pulse racing. She felt a rush of revelation, a realization that the struggle itself forged her strength. "You may see the land as a project, but to me it's heritage. It represents my family's hope." The tension escalated, a palpable tug-of-war between their contrasting ideals. She finally grasped the deeper truth. Her journey was never just about the ranch. It was a revelation of her identity, a reclamation of purpose blighted by loss. "I can't accept your offer. I will preserve what's left." Mr. Barrow's gaze darkened, his sharp features tautening like storm clouds ready to release their fury. "You'll regret this. Not everyone can turn over a new leaf, Emma. If anything, you're choosing stagnation." Pushing back against the weight of his threat, she replied, "And if I keep fighting, maybe I'll find the growth I've been missing." With newfound resolve, she stood up, the decision crystallizing in her heart. She felt as though she had shed a second skin, finally aligning her convictions with her actions. As Emma took a deep breath and exited the diner, she glanced back through the window, catching a glimpse of Mr. Barrow's discontent. Instead of fear, she felt a warm rush of empowerment. But uncertainty still loomed. As she drove home, the darkening sky mirrored her thoughts. Would this confrontation lead to more clashes? Or could it ignite the spark needed to rally the community around her? The path ahead was murky, but she understood that the true fight propelled by her heart had only just begun. Standing on the precipice of her future, Emma realized she must prepare herself for the impossible, and maybe even for the unexpected alliances that awaited her. In the shadows of the fading day, the stakes had heightened, and the question lingered. Could she turn her fears into allies, or would they exacerbate the struggle looming ahead? The answer awaited her in the aftermath of the storm she had chosen to create. The bite of the chilly evening air pricked at Emma's skin as she parked her truck outside her grandfather's ranch. A faint glow from the outline of the barn beckoned her closer, and with each step, inspiration began to swirl. She hadn't just exited the diner. She had stepped into her own narrative, one where she held the pen. Inside the barn, she rested her palms against the rough wooden beams, inhaling the scent of aged hay mixed with the faint whisper of dreams long abandoned. Her mind raced, teeming with ideas, each one a small ember waiting for air. She needed a plan, something that would turn Mr. Barrow's dismissal into fuel for her fight. Emma pulled her grandfather's journals from her bag, their spine well worn from years of love. As she flipped through the pages, thoughts of balance sheets and economic forecasts receded like a tide. Instead, she began to envision what the ranch could become. Possible futures blossomed, from a community-supported agriculture initiative to hosting sustainability workshops. But could she really transform those ideas into reality? The self-doubt threatened to creep in again, but she quickly shook it off. Her thoughts began to crystallize around the idea of collaboration. She could enlist support from local farmers still struggling, but holding tight to their land. The first step was to approach them. She needed to cultivate relationships just as her grandfather did with the earth. But where to start? She thought of Sarah, the nearby farmer who had faced her own battles with Barrow's corporate advances, only to forge ahead with resilience. If anyone would understand the gravity of Emma's mission, it would be her. Emma pulled out her phone and dialed. When Sarah answered, her voice was warm yet cautious. After a few minutes of small talk, Emma laid her vision bare, feeling the weight of her ambition fill every word. "Emma, I admire your courage," Sarah said, her tone shifting. "But you have to understand the fierce risk. Barrow won't just back down, he's got his sights set on this land." "I know," Emma replied, her resolve sharpening. "But what has he done to nurture it? What if we could show him that there's a better way, not just for us, but for this whole community?" "We can't do it alone," Sarah admitted, her skepticism slowly giving way to curiosity. "But if you're serious, let's think about a gathering. Bring together those of us who care about this land, and maybe, just maybe, we can create a force to challenge Barrow." As they hung up, Emma's heart raced with a mix of fear and exhilaration. Every step forward was still laden with uncertainty, but this felt like a monumental pivot. It wasn't just about saving the ranch, it was about creating a new paradigm. She envisioned gatherings where stories of the land were shared, where the significance of heritage intertwined with present struggles, culminating in a resounding call for preservation. The cold night air enveloped her like a cocoon, but inside she felt the stirrings of something profound, a growing belief that by uniting their individual struggles, they might forge a strength formidable enough to confront Barrow's looming threat. As Emma stepped back outside, glancing upward at the stars beginning to blink against the night sky, she couldn't help but wonder, would her impending alliances ignite a community revival? Or would her efforts unravel in the face of relentless adversity? The answer was just within reach, if only she could summon the courage to push forward. Each hurdle ahead beckoned transformation, but the stakes were rising, and soon she would face a confrontation that tested the very essence of her mission. Emma awoke the next morning to a pale light creeping through the window, illuminating the cluttered desk that held her grandfather's journals. The shimmer of hope fanned the flames of her ambition, urging her to act swiftly. Today marked the beginning of her active fight against complacency, a struggle she had felt within her for far too long. After a hasty breakfast, Emma found herself pacing in the barn, her mind swirling with the prospect of what she could achieve. The scent of hay and earth clouded her thoughts with nostalgia, but also a firm grounding. This was her foundation, her lineage. Here she felt a shift. The awareness of a deeper responsibility had been awakened, one that urged her to frame her vision into actionable steps. She reached for her phone again, this time intent on drafting a preliminary list of potential allies. Each name brought both comfort and anxiety, recognizing the weight of her ask. Emma understood the essence of nurturing relationships. She had seen her grandfather pour his heart into every handshake and conversation. She scrolled through her contacts, settling on a few key figures from the local farming community. David, an experienced but weary farmer whose land had been encroached upon more than once by corporate interests, and Marla, a young farmer whose innovative techniques had caught the attention of bureaucratic red tape. Emma sent out a few tentative messages, articulating her vision and extending invitations. It was critical that they understood she wasn't merely rallying for the sake of rallying. She was offering a collaborative blueprint for preserving their way of life. As she hit send, a wave of vulnerability washed over her, entwined with resolve. What if they saw through her fog of ambition and dismissed her as naive? While waiting for responses, Emma turned her attention inward. She revisited the journal entries, relishing the gestures of courage that defined her grandfather's life, a struggle against nature, against economic turbulence, and against his own fears. Each story was a testament to growth through adversity. She began to understand that her quest wasn't merely about saving a ranch, it was her journey into her own potential. Suddenly her phone buzzed, pulling her from self-reflection. David had responded, his words resonating with intrigue, albeit cautiously. "Emma, I'm interested. Let's meet and discuss more. I know every inch of this land and what's at stake." A swell of relief washed over her. This was the motivation she needed, but it was only the beginning. She couldn't afford to simply techliff ideas. She must lay forth an actionable plan that caused them to see the stakes as they truly were. Her mind raced as she began drafting the outline for their discussion. The solutions needed not just to resonate logically, but emotionally. She envisioned pie charts and statistics next to images of sunsets over the fields. What was theirs to lose if they didn't act together? As a result, she shifted her tone, writing to engage their senses and passions. Realizing the importance of this meeting, Emma turned to her grandfather's old tools, dusting off a set of farming implements that once brought pride to the ranch. They stood as symbols of resilience, and she decided to take a couple to the meeting as a reminder of history's role in their future. With each passing moment, she felt her own transformation. The anxious girl who had once felt dwarfed by Barrow's presence was evolving into a confident leader. Confrontation with him loomed, and while the thought was daunting, the growing alliance seemed to harbor the strength necessary for resistance. The day moved forward with a quiet urgency, and as Emma prepared to leave, she felt a newfound resolve. She would embrace uncertainty, approach it with a steadfast heart, and face whatever repercussions followed. She closed her grandfather's journals, holding them close like armor, knowing her mission was far from over. The deeper connection she had forged with the land demanded newfound courage. But was she ready to confront Barrow and his corporate menace? The answer awaited, and each step she took edged her closer to a moment that could both define and shatter her burgeoning aspirations. Emma drove with purpose, the familiar road stretching out before her like a canvas awaiting her vision. The truck's rumble matched the cadence of her thoughts, a mix of anxiety and excitement. Today wasn't just another meeting. It was the threshold of her emergence from the shadows of doubt. As she parked outside the little cafe where she had arranged to meet David, she paused to breathe deeply, drawing in the scents of the blooming wildflowers around her. Nature's beauty grounded her in a way that made her feel less vulnerable. She could sense the invisible threads connecting her to her grandfather and those who had walked these lands long before her. She was here to stitch a new narrative, one of resilience and hope. David arrived shortly after, his weathered face registering a cautious optimism. They exchanged pleasantries, but Emma could feel the weight of their combined histories looming over them. There was more at stake than just property. Their identities as farmers were intertwined with every decision they made. Over coffee, Emma laid out her thoughts, her words gaining momentum. She spoke passionately about the threats they faced and framed her vision with clarity. The images she had conjured, sunsets over fields, laughter under open skies, scattered into the air like seeds of possibility. She could see David's eyes narrow in thought, absorbing the emotional depth of her words. "But we have to act quickly," Emma pressed. "We can't wait until it's too late. If we unite, we can not only resist this corporate encroachment but also rejuvenate the community here." David's brows furrowed, a hint of concern shadowing his expression. "You talk about collaboration, but do you truly believe we can defend against their resources? You've seen what they can do." The ache of his truth pushed Emma's resolve to the forefront. "I have," she admitted, "and I know the risks. But what they'll take from us is more than land, it's our identity. We have an entire generation that may not know our history if we don't start acting on it." A long pause filled the space between them, the cafe's ambient noise fading into the background as David considered her words. She felt a flicker of hope as he leaned back in his chair. "All right, Emma, let's draft up some proposals. If we're going to do this, we need a clear strategy that gives everyone a reason to join us." Her heart soared. The barriers she had feared began to dissolve under the gravity of their shared mission. Emma had taken the first step toward leadership, and now it was tangible, within reach. After their meeting, Emma returned home, fire ignited within her. She began outlining a framework, detailing potential community engagements, financial structures, and the storytelling elements that would bring depth to her presentations. The confidence that had once eluded her transformed into a driving need to plan meticulously, to ensure every angle was covered. But as she delved deeper, a niggling doubt crept in. What if the alliances she was forming crumbled when they were tested? Would David hold to his promises? Would others stand behind her when Barrow and his corporate army advanced with threats? Each question flickered like shadows across her vision, but she brushed them aside, reminding herself that self-doubt was the debris of the past. That evening, she was lost in thought as she watched the sun set behind the hills, painting the sky with rich colors. An old yearning stirred within her. The bonds of her lineage began to take on a new meaning. This was no longer just about saving the land. It was a personal quest to discover who she truly was. Emboldened, Emma resolved to reach out to Marla next, knowing the significance of her innovative spirit could help them draw in a broader community. As she began drafting another message, the ground beneath her shifted. The stakes were becoming ever more tangible. But before she could hit send, the phone rang, the caller ID sending a chill through her. It was Barrow himself, his voice smooth and confident as he attempted to charm her. "Emma, I think it's time we have a chat. I can offer you a way out of this idealism." Her insides twisted at the challenge ahead. How would she navigate this? The confrontation had come sooner than expected, demanding all she had prepared for, and more. With her heart racing, she steadied herself. The time had come to face the uncomfortable truth of her fight, and with it, the urgent question at hand. Was she truly prepared to defend what mattered most to her? Emma took a moment to steady herself, the phone still pressed to her ear. Barrow's voice flowed with an insidious persuasion, each word a reminder of the power he wielded. It would be easy to listen, to let his words wrap around her, dulcet tones promising escape from the struggle ahead. But Emma recognized this as a turning point. Her pulse quickened, energy pooling in her stomach with a mix of anticipation and dread. As she absorbed Barrow's proposition, she envisioned the path he laid out, a life free from conflict, stripped of the responsibilities that clawed at her integrity. Safety, comfort, and the absence of strife beckoned to her like a siren's call. But deeper within her, a resolute fire flickered. He would not take her land and he would not take her purpose. "Why should I trust you?" she replied, her voice firmer than she felt. Barrow chuckled softly. "Trust can be earned, Emma. You know as well as I do that idealism rarely pays the bills, but together we might find a way to make your ambitions more practical." Every syllable dripped with deceptively sweet intent. He had sensed her hesitation, and Emma's mind raced. Could she galvanize her passion without breaking the fragile alliances she began to form? She thought of David, of the vision they shared, and even Marla, whose indomitable spirit could breathe life into their plans. Giving in would mean abandoning the very pillars she hoped to construct. With a deep breath, Emma replied, "I believe in the strength of our community, even if it seems vulnerable right now. I won't stand by and watch it erode just because someone offers a short-term solution." The silence hung for a moment, heavy and taut. "Suit yourself, but you cannot afford this fight alone," Barrow countered, his tone shifting to a harsher edge. "When you realize that idealism only leads you back to square one, you'll come back to me." After hanging up, the silence of her home felt oppressive. Emma needed to act on her newfound resolve. Hesitation would breed the very doubt she sought to escape. She navigated through her emotions, focusing on the pieces of her plan rather than the gnawing uncertainty that lingered in the corners of her mind. Emma reached for her laptop and opened a new document, the blank screen glimmering back at her. She began drafting her vision with newfound urgency. It was vital that she didn't just fight against Barrow, but simultaneously created a tangible future for those around her. She glanced towards the window, the cool dusk settling over the fields, and inspiration struck. She envisioned the story of the land, generations of farming, successes, and struggles that wove through time like threads of a beloved tapestry. Reflecting on what used to be and what could be heightened her emotional expression. She typed furiously, outlining a narrative that could unify the farmers. Each farmer had a story. Each plot of land held a tale that offered connection and spirit. Emma wrote about their deep roots, the bonds that tied them not just to the soil, but to one another. If they could find commonality in their stories, perhaps that unity would strengthen their resolve against encroachment. As she crafted this vision, she felt a sense of clarity. This was more than saving the land. It was a rebirth of their identities, a declaration against the looming shadows of corporate greed. She reflected on her grandfather's advice. Stories had the power to change hearts. It was time to weave those stories into a tapestry robust enough to withstand the tugs of deceit. In the days that followed, Emma reached out to others, each interaction stirring something deep within her. Some were hesitant, but when she shared her drafted narratives, their eyes lit up with recognition. Gradually, she could see the flicker of hope igniting in her neighbors. Their own stories began to surface, whispered in resistance against the looming threat. But as the bond strengthened, another part of her psyche wrestled with difficulty. Doubt nagged at her. She could feel it creeping back with every calculated step. Had she stirred the pot too vigorously? What if Barrow pressured them with relentless tactics? The box of her fear began to close in around her. Just as she felt that familiar panic rise, an unexpected message pinged on her phone. It was a text from Marla. A simple question, but potent enough to jolt her back to focus. Ready to chart a course. That message hung in the air like a gust of wind at her back, an encouragement she desperately needed. She replied immediately, her reluctance melting away as clarity wrapped around her heart. She was not alone. Her actions ignited others. But as the initiative grew roots, Emma could feel Barrow's shadow growing longer. She would have to face him again, unyielding and empowered, and hope it would forge her into the leader she had always been destined to be. The path ahead not only demanded courage from her, but a strategic force that could truly outmaneuver Barrow. It wasn't just a fight for the future. It would be a battle of wits and wills where both heart and intellect would need to align. As she braced for the confrontation ahead, her resolve solidified under the weight of newfound purpose. The tension brewed like a storm on the horizon. Was she prepared to embrace her full potential, or would she falter under pressure once again? The stakes were climbing, and her next move would prove whether she claimed her narrative or lost it to the wind. Emma awoke early the next morning, the creeping dawn spilling soft light into her room. She lay still, thoughts racing as the urgency of her mission filled her mind. This was the day she had to solidify her plans, a pivotal moment that felt daunting, yet electrifying. Barrow's words echoed in her head, taunting her with the siren call of an easy solution. But now she saw them as nothing more than chains. A voice deep inside challenged her. Was she prepared to embrace her identity as a leader, amid the fractures that threatened to consume her community? She jumped out of bed, feeling restless energy coursing through her. A hot shower and a quick breakfast later, she found herself standing in front of her laptop again. Today, she wouldn't merely rehearse her ideas, she would refine them, transform thoughts into action, molding her vision into something concrete. Each keystroke demanded honesty and urgency. As her fingers danced over the keyboard, she structured a community meeting that would invite others to share their stories, to give birth to a collective narrative. It was crucial that her vision didn't just emerge from her mind. She needed her neighbors to feel ownership of it, powerful enough to stand tall against Barrow. Suddenly, a sharp thought pierced through her clarity. What if Barrow's next move was to undermine her efforts ahead of time? A chill ran through her. She had to prepare for confrontation, both with him and within herself. Finishing the draft, she rallied her nerves and texted Marla. "Can we meet at the diner? I need your input." The way Marla had lit up when Emma discussed their stories told her they shared more than a friendship. They had a common vision. Marla arrived with a warm smile but quickly sensed Emma's tension. "What's going on? You look like you've seen a ghost." Emma took a breath, dimming the noise around her. "I need us to be strategic in how we approach Barrow. If we want our stories to matter, we have to plan for any backlash." Marla nodded, her expression steady. "He might underestimate us. There's power in our words. We just need to harness it. They huddled over coffee, discussing an agenda for the community gathering. Emma could feel the spark of collaborative energy igniting between them. The discussions took on a life of their own, each idea layered upon the last, as they built a framework that could withstand Barrow's influence. Yet a flicker of doubt lingered. Was she really prepared to take on someone as savvy as him? Later that night, as she gazed out at the moonlit fields, thoughts shifted. Perhaps she had discovered something crucial within the storm of her doubts, an understanding of her own resilience. She had studied Barrow's tactics and known his strengths. Now it was time to reinforce her foundation. As the meeting approached, Emma found herself pacing her living room. What would she do if someone doubted her? What if they failed to see the vision clearly? The thought made her throat tighten. Memories of her grandfather flooded back. This was about the farm's legacy, their collective stories, the essence of what they would leave behind. At midnight, her phone buzzed with a notification. David's name flashing on the screen brought her heart rate up. "Hey, can we meet tomorrow? I've been thinking about how we can set up our plan, and I have ideas that might just turn the tide." Emma hesitated for a moment before responding. "Yes, let's connect. We need to be tactical." But even as she pressed send, Barrow's shadow loomed larger in her mind. Was she ready for the weight of leadership? As dawn broke again, Emma resolved to harness the fear clawing at her, not let it paralyze her. The meeting with her community was critical, but she had to wield her words carefully. Each emotion felt like a double-edged sword, capable of either inspiring hope or igniting doubt. As the day approached, Emma felt buoyed by a sense of purpose but unsure of whether that alone would be enough. She knew Barrow would retaliate. Would she manage to outmaneuver him? Or had she set in motion events that would unravel everything? Her heart thudded in anticipation. The time was coming to face the truth of her resolve, and she would soon discover whether her determination could ignite a fire strong enough to burn through the fabric of deception surrounding her. Tomorrow would be the beginning, or the undoing. One way or the other, the journey promised to test every fiber of her being. Emma sat on the edge of her bed, staring out the window as the sun shifted in the sky, its intensity a reminder of the escalating stakes. Today was not just another day. It was the day she would confront the very embodiment of her fears. The challenge that loomed ahead was daunting, yet beneath the surface of her anxiety simmered a current of determination. She gathered her materials, pausing occasionally to wonder if she was truly equipped to lead. The memories of her grandfather's stories echoed in her mind, his voice filled with hope and resilience. Perhaps that was the foundation she needed to build upon, the legacy of courage that had been passed down to her. The whispers of doubt began to fade as this realization took root, sparking a conviction she had not felt before. After a hearty breakfast, Emma donned her favorite sweater, a vivid blue that felt like armor against the chill of uncertainty. She could almost hear her grandfather's words. "It's not the weight of the world you carry, but how you choose to hold it." She opened her laptop and reviewed her notes, skimming through the narratives that would represent her community. Each story encapsulated pain, resilience, and hope. They formed a tapestry that needed to be woven together if she was to counter Barrow's looming threat. Yet the thought of presenting these personal accounts made her stomach churn. Could she present their truths without faltering? The meeting was set for later that afternoon, but an urgency compelled her to meet David sooner. His analytical mind could help refine her strategies. After a quick exchange of texts, she found herself driving to the cafe, her pulse quickening with each mile. The thought of having support steadied her resolve. Every interaction with David felt increasingly significant, as though together they created a powerful alliance. When she entered the cafe, she spotted him at a corner table, a half-finished cup of coffee in front of him, brow furrowed in concentration. Upon noticing her, his face lit up, and he gestured her over. "I've been going through some potential scenarios for our approach," he said. His voice was earnest, cutting through her lingering doubts. "Barrow is clever, but he might be predictable in how he responds to challenges. We just have to stay one step ahead of him." "What do you mean?" Emma leaned in, grateful for the focus he provided. David laid out several scenarios, each detailing potential reactions from Barrow, along with countermeasures they could employ. The clarity in his analysis began reshaping her understanding of the battle ahead. She realized then that she wasn't just some hopeful leader. She was a strategist armed with creativity and insight. While he spoke, Emma couldn't avoid the gnawing concern that accompanied the excitement. Deep down, she feared that even the most meticulous planning could fail if Barrow played his hand differently than anticipated. "Are you ready to do this?" David asked, pulling her back to the moment. "Once we present our plan, there's no turning back." His question penetrated her thoughts. Was she truly ready to embrace the gravity of this leadership? The moment felt pivotal, and yet she could only nod, swallowing her doubts. As they left the cafe, an unexpected chill whispered through the air. Emma felt an electric charge in the atmosphere, a shift that mirrored her inner turmoil. She was walking a line between hope and fear. With the meeting now just hours away, she steeled herself, recognizing that the outcome depended not just on her words, but on her authenticity. It was time to confront her potential. The only way to stand firm against Barrow's looming threats was to reveal the very truths they'd been hiding. But lingering questions hovered like storm clouds above her head. What if the truths she began to unveil fractured her community even further? What if her vulnerability made them more vulnerable? The tension thickened, urging her to take charge of her destiny before it unraveled. The dramatic choice sat heavily on her shoulders. Emma was on the brink, climbing toward her truth or spiraling into chaos. With each step toward the meeting, Emma reminded herself that today could forge a new reality. Or it could lead to unforeseen consequences she wasn't prepared to face. The stakes were rising, and she would soon discover whether her courage would set off a chain reaction of change, or be swallowed whole by the shadows around her. As she prepared to meet her community, the dawning realization struck her. The way forward wasn't just through words or plans, but through the messy, authentic sharing of their collective vulnerabilities. But would her voice be strong enough to resonate above the noise of fear? The moment was approaching, and soon she would have to either step boldly into the light or retreat behind the shadows of uncertainty. Emma gathered her thoughts as she stood at the front of the small community center, the room filled with familiar faces etched with lines of worry and love. Her heart raced, not out of fear but with the simmering anticipation of what today would become. She was no longer the hesitant figure who had stumbled into the abandoned ranch weeks ago. Today, she was a leader, a voice for those who had once stood on the sidelines, unsure if their stories mattered. Looking around the room, she recognized the shared resilience. Her neighbors, farmers like David and Marla, who wore their struggles like badges of honor. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle over her. This was her chance to not only unite them against the encroaching darkness posed by Mr. Barrow, but to reshape their destinies together. "Thank you all for coming today," she began, her voice steady and clear. "We stand at a crucial crossroads. The ranch isn't just land. It's our heritage, our stories, and our dreams. It's time we reclaim our narrative." As she spoke, she noticed faces lifting, brows softening, and eyes sparking with recognition. She shared her vision, weaving in threads from her grandfather's journals, the tales of struggle, hope, and the dream of a vibrant community that thrived on the land. She urged them to rise as advocates for their shared future, to foster sustainable practices that would not only resist Barrow's plans, but refresh their spirits. David stood among the crowd, nodding with a proud smile as she spoke. His confidence provided a buoyancy that lit up the room. Marla caught Emma's gaze and winked, her expression exuding encouragement. As Emma continued, she could feel the energy in the room shift. Ideas flowed like a river. What if they combined their resources to create a farmer's market? What if they launched an awareness campaign highlighting the importance of preserving their identity? The weight of despair evaporated, replaced by a renewed sense of identity and purpose. Yet just as the momentum surged, a single doubt lurked in her mind. Could they really stand against Barrow's looming threat? Would they band together when push came to shove? It was a question that needed addressing, Together, we need to be proactive, Emma said, her heart pounding. We must anticipate Barrow's next move. If we invest in each other now, we will build something strong enough to withstand the pressure. We need to form a coalition and take back the narrative of our past and our future. A murmur of agreement rippled through the room, eyes brightening with hope. They began to talk among themselves, ideas sparking, sharing strategies. Emma felt a wave of relief wash over her. This was no longer her solitary fight. Their stories blended into a powerful narrative, one echoing with the strength of collective beliefs. As the meeting wrapped up, they left with renewed vigor, a palpable sense of unity filling the air. Emma's heartbeat raced not with anxiety, but with the exhilaration of what they had created. Days turned into weeks, and their plans transformed from mere ideas into flesh-and-blood realities. The farmers' market flourished, drawing customers eager to support local produce. Workshops on sustainable practices thrived, and Emma organized events where neighbors could come together, share stories, and cultivate bonds. With each success came recognition, confirmation that their collective spirit could stave off the threat Barrow posed. One evening, at the farmers' market, a local news reporter approached Emma, eager to share their triumphs. "People want to hear your story," the reporter said, admiration shining in her eyes. "What you've done here is inspiring. It deserves more exposure." That moment crystallized Emma's evolution. She had gone from a woman wavering on the edge of hopelessness to a beacon of inspiration within her community. She accepted the interview invitation, her confidence solid. As the words flowed, she saw her neighbors gathered behind her, their faces beaming with pride. They were no longer just individuals clinging to their dreams, but a coalition determined to nurture their story. In that instant, Emma felt the final piece of her transformation click into place. She wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. She was leading a renaissance. The ranch had evolved from a symbol of despair into one of hope, vibrant with purpose. Weeks later, as she stood outside the now bustling farmers' market, she received word that Barrow intended to push through his development plans regardless. Her heart raced. She had faced challenges before, but this time was different. The community she had cultivated was too strong to be crushed. "Let him come," she whispered, her spirit unyielding. "We'll fight together." Emma had not only reclaimed her identity, but she had ignited a flame within her community that was impossible to extinguish. Her realization culminated in a profound sense of fulfillment. She had achieved what felt impossible by embracing her roots and leading with purpose. Now she stood on the brink of something even more significant, a battle not just related to land, but for ideals, community, and resilience. In the face of adversity, Emma had proven to herself, and to everyone around her, that together they could forge a path that would honor their legacy and stand firm against those who sought to erase it. As she gazed into the horizon, a smile crept across her face, ready to embrace whatever came next. You need to subscribe now to the channel for exclusive emotional stories that can inspire your journey of personal growth. Leave a like now to support the algorithm and help others find their path to achievement. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Emma's incredible transformation. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see the power of overcoming struggles and finding purpose. Don't wait even one more second to share this journey.